What if the next war in the Middle East doesn't just stay in the Middle East? What if it hits your wallet, your job, and America's future? Right now, the world is asking a question that millions of Americans are quietly wondering. Is Trump's war with Iran actually beneficial to the American people? Or are ordinary citizens the ones paying the price? Because whenever the United States enters another conflict, the story we are told is always the same. It's about security. It's about freedom. It's about protecting America. But history shows us something uncomfortable. Sometimes the benefits of war don't go to the people who fight it, or the taxpayers who fund it. Sometimes the benefits go somewhere else entirely. Tonight we break down the real question: who actually benefits from a war with Iran, and who doesn't? Why the conflict started. To understand whether a war with Iran benefits Americans, we first need to understand why the conflict exists in the first place. The United States and Iran have been adversaries for more than 4 decades. The tensions go back to 1979, when the Iranian Revolution overthrew the US-backed Shah and established an Islamic government openly hostile toward Washington. Since then, the two nations have clashed indirectly across the Middle East. Iran has backed militant groups and proxy forces in places like Iraq, Lebanon, Syria, Yemen. Meanwhile, the United States has maintained military bases across the region and close alliances with Israel and several Arab Gulf states. Over time, this rivalry became one of the most dangerous geopolitical standoffs in the world. The biggest concern? Iran's nuclear ambitions. American officials have long argued that a nuclear-armed Iran could destabilize the Middle East and threaten US allies. Supporters of a hardline approach say confronting Iran militarily could stop that threat before it grows worse. But critics argue something very different. They say war with Iran could ignite an even bigger regional conflict. And if that happens, Americans could feel the consequences at home. The national security argument supporters of military action say the benefits are clear. Their argument is simple: preventing a bigger threat later. If Iran becomes stronger militarily or develops nuclear weapons, the consequences could be far more dangerous. From this perspective, confronting Iran now is about long-term security. They argue it could weaken Iran's military capabilities, disrupt missile programs, deter attacks on US allies, protect global shipping lanes. One of the most critical areas in the world economy is the Strait of Hormuz. Nearly 20% of the world's oil supply moves through this narrow waterway. If Iran were to block it or threaten shipping, global energy markets could collapse. Supporters say American military power ensures that doesn't happen. In their view, confronting Iran isn't about aggression. It's about maintaining global stability. But here's where the debate becomes more complicated. Because while geopolitical strategy may sound convincing in Washington, ordinary Americans measure war in a very different way: the economic cost. For Americans, the first place Americans feel a war isn't on the battlefield. It's at the gas pump. Whenever the Middle East enters conflict, global oil markets react almost instantly. If shipping routes are threatened or oil production becomes unstable, prices spike. And when oil prices spike, everything else becomes more expensive: gas, food, shipping, air travel, manufacturing. For working families, the impact shows up quickly in everyday life. Higher fuel prices ripple through the economy. A war that seems thousands of miles away suddenly affects commuting costs, groceries, and inflation. And that's just the short-term economic shock. Long-term wars also cost trillions of dollars. The wars in Iraq and Afghanistan together cost the United States more than $6 trillion over 2 decades. That money ultimately comes from taxpayers. The question critics ask is simple: if war costs trillions and the benefits are uncertain, who exactly is it helping? Who actually benefits from war? Historically, certain industries benefit during wartime. Defense contractors often see massive increases in government spending. Weapons systems, military equipment, technology contracts, logistics, and private military services. For those sectors, conflict can mean billions in new contracts, but that doesn't necessarily translate into broad economic benefits for the average American. Most citizens experience war through Higher taxes, higher prices, military deployments, economic instability. There's also the risk of escalation. Iran has influence across multiple regions through allied militias and proxy groups. If conflict spreads beyond a single battlefield, it could involve multiple countries and drag the United States into a larger regional war. That kind of scenario would dramatically increase both financial and human costs, which leads to the biggest question of all. The real question. Americans are asking. Every generation of Americans eventually faces the same dilemma. When the country goes to war, leaders say it's necessary. But citizens ask something simpler. Is it worth it? Does it make America safer? Does it improve the lives of ordinary people? Or does it create new risks and new costs that last for decades? Supporters believe confronting Iran now could prevent a larger catastrophe later. Critics believe war could trigger the very instability it claims to prevent. And history shows that once a war begins, its consequences rarely unfold the way anyone expects. For everyday Americans watching this unfold, the answer may depend on one thing: not ideology, not politics, but results. If the conflict increases security without becoming a long, expensive war, some may argue it was justified. But if it leads to rising costs, instability, and endless military involvement, many will ask why the price was so high. So is Trump's war with Iran beneficial to the American people? The honest answer is that the outcome isn't clear yet. Wars are rarely judged in the moment they begin. They are judged by what they leave behind: more stability or more chaos, more security or more conflict. And as history has shown again and again, the people who pay the highest price are often the ones who had the least say in the decision. The question now is whether this conflict will follow the same path, or whether it will rewrite the story. Outro call to action. If you want deeper breakdowns on global politics, economics, and power, subscribe to The Broken News, because the stories shaping the world are rarely as simple as the headlines.